Brent. How are you?
Hey, good morning. I'm good. How have you been?
I'm good, thanks. So, thanks for talking with me today. I want to talk about all things credit score. How important is it when you're applying to get a mortgage? How important is the credit score to the overall process?
Well, it's integral to how the loan is priced and also to the demonstrating the willingness to repay. The credit in general is a critical factor, but the score itself really lends itself to pricing.
Does pricing mean like what kind of interest rate you can get?
Right, right. What kind of interest rate and costs would be associated with getting a loan with that score?
Okay, so the better your credit score, then typically the better your interest rate will be.
Correct.
What's the low end of a credit score where you could still feasibly be getting a good mortgage?
It depends on the product that we're working with. So FHA really doesn't have a defined bottom credit score. We go down to like 575, but typically when you have credit that's that low, there are issues throughout the report that may disqualify it from being able to get a loan. That said, it's not always that way. That's not always the case. So it's really twofold. You know, when you start talking about government loans, FHA doesn't have that kind of a requirement, whereas your MISHDA type transaction is 640. Conventionals are typically 620, although they're going into a way that they average now when you have one below 620. But that's the general guidance. 620 is a rule of thumb for most, but there's certain ones that'll have a higher requirement like MISHDA, and then some that don't have any like FHA.
Is there a way for a person, if they want to kind of look ahead and see what kind of credit score they have? So for example, my Discover card sends me emails regularly and says,
Right.
Hey, Jessica, check your new credit score, da, da, da. So would that work?
So that's a different score. There's different scoring models depending on what you're looking at. So typically a credit card may have their own scoring model, or they may use what's called a Vantage score, which is what everything is really going to. Fannie and Freddie are making that move. Right now, though, you're primarily looking at FICO 2 is the model for mortgage lending. Automotive has their own, credit cards have their own, and insurance has their own. All these different industries have their own black box, if you will.
I see. Okay. So the score that I see on my report from my credit card may not necessarily be the score that the mortgage companies are going to be using.
Right. Likely won't at this point, but sometime in the future it will. It's coming, but for right now, yeah, it'll be different.
There are three agencies, right, where you guys look for credit scores and they pull from these three different agencies. Is that correct?
Right. TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. One of the sites I recommend to my clients is myfico.com.
Oh, great.
myfico.com. That is a service from Experian. That is a credit monitoring service, as well as it gives you scoring models and tips and things like that about credit and how to improve it. And there, if it's a monthly subscription, you could get your mortgage credit scores specific to the industries, and they're spot on because they use the actual model.
Would that take a hit? Would you take a hit to your credit if you use that?
No, this is a personal credit monitoring service. Those don't count. A monitoring service will typically give you a monthly report, let you know if there's a payment that's showing late, or let you know a collection account pops up.
Why is it that the three agencies each show a different number?
They each have a slightly different model in how they define it, but also not all agencies get the same data. So certain creditors will only report to TransUnion, for example, or to Experian, and not the others. So they'll have different data.
So let's say that you are a client and you have found out that your credit score puts you at a disadvantage, a disadvantage so great that it's decided, let's work on getting your credit fixed or build it a little bit more. Yeah. Okay. So what are some good ways if someone has found out that they're like, okay, I'm in that category where if I were able to get my score a little bit higher, things would be different for me. What are some ways that a person could improve their credit score?
We have a service called Credit Expert. When we run into that kind of an issue, we can have them run a scenario, and it's called Wayfinder. And that will dictate what that person needs to do to get their score to a certain level. So, for example, if I'm at a 620 score and I need to be 640, it's going to tell me what to do with the credit report now in order to impact that score and make it higher.
That's cool. So Lake Michigan specifically has that program.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, awesome.
And we can do that for any client that's looking to improve their credit.
Okay. In general, would you say that if you're getting ready, you're trying to get your credit house in order to prepare to apply for a mortgage, say you're looking through your credit cards and you're like, oh gosh, JCPenney, I haven't shopped at JCPenney in 12 years. Should you close that credit card down if it's still open?
So sometimes I wouldn't make moves without the advice of that credit expert program. It does give me the ability not only to do that Wayfinder, but also what if scenarios. I can go in and manually make changes to the report and see how that would impact the score. I wouldn't do those types of things without that having run and giving, because it gives solid advice. It gives you usually anywhere from a 90 to 98%, 99% success rate of raising the score to the level that you want. So if it's possible to do it, they'll tell you exactly what to do. And it's interesting. It's not necessarily pay off the entire credit card or close the account. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's, hey, pay this down to a $100 balance. All of that influences where the score will ultimately end up being. It takes about a month to process that, where we pull it and then we wait until after the first week of the following month, after they've completed the tasks, to re-pull the credit.
Okay, so it might even just only be a month-long process to improve your credit?
Or less, yeah.
Wow. Okay, I think people might be thinking it would take a long time to repair. What is that? So you'd mentioned like a 20-point sort of elevation that you were trying to get to. What if you were in like lower than that, even in the 5 somewhere? Would it take a little bit longer?
So it could. What it'll do, if I'm trying to go too far for where the credit's at, mm-hmm. it'll tell me that it doesn't have a way to make that happen. So if I was trying to go from 575 to 700, it would give me the suggestion of, hey, that's not possible. Why don't you try for 620? And then it'll give me the rules for 620, or what actions to take for the customer to take to get to 620.
Okay. Wow. That sounds like a really cool program. I didn't know that existed. Yeah. Say you are just getting started. Say that you've got a young adult in your house, maybe just getting ready to go off to college this coming year. Are there ways that you could suggest that you can build good credit habits like straight away?
What I've done, I've got 2 in college and 1 going this fall. Once they turn 18, I get them a student Discover card, and that's totally in their name. I don't even co-sign on it. They'll give them usually a line, $500 to $1,000, and then you set that up for auto payment, so it just automatically pays the balance every month. This is a big credit tool for starting out. I think my kids, after their first year, had like a 760 credit score. So it really makes a big difference. That's one of the things I recommend. The next would be to co-sign with maybe a vehicle payment. Being a co-signer there helps them establish an installment loan and an installment type credit profile. That helps a lot. And then, of course, they'll start, once they graduate and have a job, they'll start getting into their own credit and a little bit more in depth, creating that what they call a thickness of file, which is having both time and credit references.
A more robust sort of snapshot of what's happening.
Yeah. But that's the way I start them out. It's the way I started out when I was 18. I got a credit card and racked it up while I was in college a little bit. Probably didn't, I never missed a payment, but I probably overspent while I was there.
Yeah, sure. That's the same thing. I went to the University of Wyoming. So 1995, I had a brown and gold little horse with a Bank of America, I think it was. Is it possible to get a loan without having any credit history at all if you've never had a credit card?
It is. There's what they call non-traditional credit histories. This is where we document your rent, your utilities, anything that you pay on a regular basis. That's phone, cell phone, We get payment histories with consumers or DTE, just depending on the depth. And you're trying to get at least 3 sources. So rent's a big one, and then the other utility companies, cable, phone, and power and whatnot. Now, you might be restricted on the program you can get. Typically, that would work for an FHA loan. Some conventional loans allow for it, so it's one of the things that's possible, but it may not work for each product that's available out there in the mortgage world.
Okay, so to summarize, if you want to find out about your credit and see where you are, if you're thinking about buying a house, probably the best thing is to get in touch with a lender like you guys at Lake Michigan Credit Union or somebody, and have that lender go ahead and take a look at what's happening in your credit. And then if it's not where you want it to be, you can get into this program. What's it called again? Wayfinder?
Wayfinder from Credit Expert. Yep.
Okay, cool. So you could get into a program like that. So you shouldn't go canceling willy-nilly all your credit cards that you haven't used, because that might actually hurt you.
Correct.
Which could feel counterintuitive, I think, to a lot of people. So don't go making drastic moves without talking with a professional and taking a look at that. You guys will help them figure out the way forward.
Exactly.
Hey, that sounds pretty great. All right, great. So if you have questions, you should talk with Brent, and he and his team will be happy to help you. And I appreciate it, Brent. Thanks so much.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.